Spirit warrior, your rise wasn't luck, it was alignment. While they mocked your silence, heaven was scripting your breakthrough. You see, history has a pattern. Every chosen one walks through a wilderness before the world recognizes their worth. Think of David tending sheep while God prepared him to face giants. Or Joseph, sold into slavery only to rise to power in Egypt. Their stories mirror yours, underestimated, overlooked and pushed aside, but never forgotten by the one who called them. There was a time when everything around you felt like failure. The lights went off, the path vanished, and those closest to you, they kept their distance, as if your brokenness might stain them too. But what they didn't realize was that while your world looked still, something divine was happening underground. Just like seeds are buried before they bloom, you were planted, not buried. You weren't disappearing, you were developing in the secret places you prayed. Not just the God bless me kind of prayers, but the raw ones. The tear-soaked, voice-cracked, soul-bared conversations where heaven leaned in close. And that's when the shift began. While others performed for applause, you trained in silence. While they mocked your dreams, you built them brick by brick in the dark. You didn't need validation because you had revelation. And when the time came, you didn't just return, you glowing not from glitter, but from the fire that refined you. Now the ones who laughed are stunned into silence. The blueprint they tried to destroy, you've rewritten it with gold ink. Maya Angelou's words echo in your journey. Still, like dust I rise, and rise you did, higher, stronger, wiser. They don't understand how you pulled it off, how you went from rock bottom to rock solid, but you know. It wasn't a trend, it wasn't luck, it was purpose. You didn't come to fit in, you came to set a standard, and now the imitators are plenty, but the original remains unshaken. In this video, we'll unpack the 7 spiritual laws behind your comeback, the very forces that made you unstoppable. So stay tuned, Spirit Warrior. What you're about to hear will not only affirm your journey, but also give you divine strategy to keep rising, no matter who waits for you to fall. This isn't just survival, this is destiny in motion. Let's get into it. Point 1, your survival wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. Chosen ones, you were never supposed to bloom, but you did. They threw dirt on your name, thinking it would bury you. Not realizing they were participating in divine agriculture. See, what they meant as your grave, God used as a garden. Every lie they spread, every whisper behind your back, every door slammed in your face, it all became spiritual compost, fertilizer, soil, because heaven has a way of taking betrayal and transforming it into breakthrough. And now, the very people who tried to erase your existence are forced to witness your evolution. Let's get something straight. You weren't just surviving life, you were surviving agendas. People didn't just doubt you, they were invested in your downfall. Why? Because your existence threatened the systems they were comfortable with. You were never loud, but your presence was piercing. You carried light, and light always exposes shadows. The moment you walked into a room with clarity, love, and truth, they felt it. They just didn't know what to call it, so they called you arrogant, rebellious, too much, too quiet, too different. But really, you were chosen. Spiritually speaking, being chosen is a heavy assignment. It means you were marked for elevation before people even understood your foundation. That's why they tried to trip you early, before you could take flight. In psychology, there's a term called confirmation bias. People tend to look for evidence that confirms what they already believe. So when someone expects you to fail, every stumble is used as proof that you're not worthy. They never gave you grace, never considered your growth. But God looked at the same situation and saw preparation. You didn't just dodge betrayal, you learned from it. You didn't just endure heartbreak, you refined your discernment. You began to spot snakes before they slithered. Your intuition sharpened, your spirit got wise. You started to see people for who they were and still chose to walk in love. That's what separates you. You didn't let the darkness make you bitter. You stayed soft. You kept your heart open. And in a cold, cynical world, that's a miracle in itself. Most people crumble under the kind of spiritual warfare you survived, but you came out glowing, not because of your strength, but because of God's covering. That's called spiritual preservation. It's not luck. It's not hustle. It's not strategy. It's the favor that makes no sense, the peace that surpasses understanding, the restoration that looks impossible from the outside. That's why people are shocked now. You look untouched by the fire they know you walked through. And let's talk about that glow. No, it's not skincare, it's not lighting, it's divine resilience. Your spirit is radiant because it's been through the shadow and still chose the light. That kind of energy is undeniable. It confuses people. They remember what you came from and it messes with their logic. How are they still standing? How are they still kind? How are they thriving after everything? The answer is simple. You were never powered by this world in the first place. You're tapped into something eternal. Every rejection was redirection. Every betrayal was a spiritual test. Every delay was divine timing. And now you're walking in rooms you used to pray to enter. You're receiving blessings you were once denied. You've become a living contradiction to everything they said about you. And that's the real testimony. Not just that you made it, but that you made it with grace. You didn't lose your mind. You didn't lose your soul. You didn't become what they projected onto you. You stayed rooted. You stayed chosen. And now you're blooming loudly, boldly, unapologetically. The storm didn't destroy you. It revealed you. So let them be shocked. Let them talk. Let them question how. Because you know the truth. You weren't preserved for popularity. You were preserved for purpose. And now that purpose is calling. Keep walking, keep shining. And never forget, you were buried, but God made you bloom. Point 2, they wanted your power but couldn't handle your purpose. Oh, they loved your glow at first, spirit warrior. The way you carried yourself with that quiet confidence, that divine aura that made even the loudest person in the room feel suddenly small. You didn't need to shout your worth, you radiated it. Your walk wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. You walked like someone who had been through the fire but made peace with the flames. That kind of presence is intoxicating, magnetic, and unforgettable. They couldn't get enough of you until they got close enough to see what it cost to shine like that. See, everyone wants the oil, but nobody wants the pressing. They admire your glow, but they don't see the grind. They crave your peace, but they didn't witness the nights you cried in silence, the moments of spiritual warfare when your soul was under siege, and your prayers were the only weapons you had left. They saw your light and assumed it was luck. But this was never about luck. This was about obedience, discipline, endurance, the kind of anointing that doesn't just fall into your lap, it's forged. Here's a truth that most don't want to hear. Your purpose is not cute, chosen one. It's costly. The path you walk comes with receipts, emotional, spiritual, even physical. It's not a vibe, it's a vow. A vow to keep going when it's lonely, to keep loving when it's painful, to stay humble when you're elevated, and to stay focused when distractions disguise themselves as opportunities. They wanted the crown, but not the crucifixion, the victory, but not the valley. They didn't realize that divine confidence only comes after divine crushing. And let's be clear, God didn't give you influence just to make you popular. This isn't about likes or aesthetics. It's not about the aesthetics of holiness or the branding of purpose. God gave you influence to create impact. That means your words carry weight, your actions shift atmospheres, your very existence is a walking sermon, a moving reminder that heaven still touches earth. And that kind of impact, it requires refinement. You had to go through the fire so you could be fireproof. You had to be rejected so you could recognize real love. You had to be stripped so your identity would be rooted in God, not applause, not attention. And now look around. The same people who laughed at your boundaries are now setting their own. The same folks who mocked your vision are now watching it unfold. The same ones who couldn't stand you in the process are now mimicking the product. But here's what they missed. You're not just gifted, you're anointed. This isn't performance, this is purpose. What you carry can't be copied because it was never meant to be commercialized. It's sacred, divine, holy. And when they underestimated you, they weren't just underestimating a person, they were underestimating the call of God on your life. They thought they were in competition with you, but they were really competing with your calling, something they can't touch, can't comprehend, and most definitely can't control, because your calling wasn't handed to you, it was cultivated in silence, in solitude, in suffering. And now that the fruit is blooming, they want to skip the seed phase and jump to the harvest. But it doesn't work like that. You didn't inherit this glow. You fought for it, you bled for it, you prayed for it. So don't dim now, don't explain, don't shrink. Let them watch, let them wonder, let them misunderstand. You are not here to be liked, you are here to lead. You are not here to impress, you are here to impact. And you are not here by accident, you are assigned. And that assignment, it's above their pay grade. Keep glowing, spirit warrior. The oil on your life is rare. And that's exactly why it costs so much to carry. Point 3. God hid you in plain sight. You were never invisible. Let that land in your spirit. You were hidden, and there's a world of difference between the two. Being invisible implies you lack worth or presence, but being hidden, that means you were intentionally placed out of sight by divine design. Earth angel, God didn't forget you. He protected you, not from punishment, but from premature exposure. Because diamonds don't develop on display and greatness isn't grown in public. See, chosen ones, God had you in what you might call spiritual witness protection. You were shielded from the spotlight while he refined your soul in the shadows. Why? Because your anointing carries weight. And weight without preparation becomes a burden. If God had unleashed your power too early, you would have been applauded for gifts you hadn't yet mastered, or crushed by expectations you weren't yet ready to bear. So instead, he kept you low-key. While others were being celebrated, you were being consecrated. While they were chasing followers, you were learning to follow him. They mistook your silence for insignificance because you weren't posting every win, announcing every plan, or showing off every move. They thought you were inactive, but baby, chosen vessels don't have to announce themselves. Their fruit does the talking. It's always the loudest ones with the least depth. Meanwhile, you were over there quietly being molded, chiseled, and strengthened. The spotlight didn't build you, surrender did. Here's a fact for you. In nature, some of the strongest and most resilient creations, like pearls and crystals, are formed in darkness, under pressure, away from prying eyes. That's where God had you. While they were partying, you were praying. While they were performing, you were preparing. And now that the stage has been set, you're showing up, fully equipped, dripping in discernment, purpose, and peace. And they don't know how to handle it. See, while they laughed, mocked, and dismissed you, heaven was leveling you up. What they perceived as weakness was actually wisdom. The way you held your tongue, wisdom. The way you stayed low when you wanted to prove a point, wisdom. The way you let go instead of lashing out, straight up divine strategy. They thought you were taking L's, but really you were just letting God lead. Now the tables have turned. You've emerged from that season of hiddenness. And baby, you're glowing with glory, with grace, with grit. Your aura is loud without saying a word. Your elevation is undeniable. And now they're scrambling, trying to figure out when you flipped the script. But the truth is, God flipped it a long time ago. They just couldn't see it because your growth didn't come with an announcement. Your breakthrough didn't come with a drum roll. It came quietly but powerfully. And here's the kicker. They weren't ready. They weren't ready for this version of you. They weren't ready for the clarity in your voice, the conviction in your walk, the boundary in your no, or the peace that you didn't have to earn. You became it. They thought the wait was a delay, but really it was development. Divine timing is never rushed, and now that you've been revealed, nothing can conceal your calling. So walk boldly, spirit warriors. You've spent enough time hidden. You're not invisible. You were hand-picked, hand-shaped, and hand-covered by the Most High. And now you're walking in a season where who you really are can no longer be ignored. Your authenticity is loud, your light is undeniable, and your presence, it's disruptive. But that's the thing about the chosen. When they finally step out of hiding, they don't just show up. They shift everything. Point 4, your discipline disarmed them. Let's be real, they really did try everything to throw you off, didn't they? The gossip, the subtle sabotage, the distractions disguised as opportunities, the temptations sweetly wrapped in temporary pleasure. And let's not forget the never-ending drama that seemed to follow you like a shadow. But what they didn't know, and still can't quite comprehend, is that you weren't built to break. You didn't bite, you didn't fold. You didn't lose your footing. You kept your eyes locked on the promise, even when the storm came swinging. That kind of focus doesn't come from willpower alone, Earth Angel. No, that kind of peace under pressure is the fruit of spiritual discipline. While they were out there moving for attention, performing for applause, and reacting to every insult or shade tossed their way, you were in your prayer closet, still quiet, listening. You stayed, prayed up. You fasted when you needed clarity. You sought the face of God, not just his hand. Your roots ran deep, which is why the wind didn't take you out. See, the average person is shaken by public opinion because their foundation is built on it. But yours was built on obedience, not convenience, not comfort, not popularity, but spiritual alignment with divine instruction. And that, beloved, made you untouchable in ways they'll never understand, because when you're led by God, even silence becomes strategy, even rejection becomes redirection, even your restraint becomes revelation. Your discipline made you dangerous. Let's say that again for the people in the back. Your discipline made you dangerous. While they were trading morals for moments, you were quietly mastering self-control. While they were chasing trends, you were chasing truth. While they were thirsting for likes, you were quenching your soul with the word. You didn't just want a breakthrough, you prepared for it. You didn't just dream, you discerned. That's why your glow now, it hits different. You turned down business deals, relationships, and situationships that didn't align with your calling. Not because you didn't need them, but because you recognized the cost of spiritual compromise. You weren't trying to build a brand, you were building a legacy. That meant choosing purpose over popularity, calling over convenience, and truth over trends. That meant sitting alone at times. It meant crying in private, celebrating in silence, and showing up every day with no applause, no witnesses, and still giving it everything. And now they're watching you soar, but they don't realize it's because of the unseen work. The early mornings, the late night prayers, the fasts nobody knew about, the boundaries you enforced, the temptations you turned away from when nobody was looking, the self-discipline when you wanted to clap back but chose peace. The times you chose faith over fear again and again. Now they're staring at your glow, thinking it's just a good filter or a lucky break. But baby, your glow isn't curated, it's cultivated. It's not surface deep, it's soul deep. You're radiant not because of what you wear or what you post, but because your spirit has been refined in the fire and came out without smelling like smoke. That's a real glow. That's eternal glow. So the next time they ask how you did it, how you kept your peace, how you elevated without selling out, how you're still standing, just smile, because you know the truth. You didn't just survive the chaos. You mastered it, and now you shine with a power that doesn't fade, because it was never about the spotlight, it was about the source. Point 5, you made peace with being the outcast. Spirit warrior, here's the real truth. Being chosen always comes with a cost. And more often than not, that cost is misunderstanding. People weren't ready for your frequency because your soul came coded with ancient wisdom. You didn't show up to blend in, you were sent to shift atmospheres. From the jump, your presence disrupted the normal. You never asked for attention, but attention somehow always found you, not because you were loud, but because your energy was undeniable. They said you were too much, too sensitive, too deep. You'd walk into a room and feel things no one spoke out loud, because you didn't just hear with ears, you listened with your spirit. You caught vibes, read silence like scripture, and knew when someone's smile was really a scream for help. You cried over injustices others ignored. You dreamed dreams so bold they called them delusions. But here's the truth they missed. You were never weird, you were wide awake. Let's break it down for a moment. What many mistake as oversensitivity is actually heightened spiritual discernment. Studies in neuroscience confirm that people with high empathy levels process emotions more intensely. But for spirit warriors, it's more than emotion, it's divine radar. You could feel people's intentions before their actions exposed them. You could sense deception under charm and healing under brokenness. That kind of insight, it scares people who live in masks, and so they labeled you crazy, dramatic, aloof, isolated, but you weren't losing your mind, you were finding your mission. And the moment you stopped trying to explain your heart to people who only spoke ego, you started walking in power. You broke free from the need to be understood, and that, right there, was the moment your spirit warrior era began. Your peace no longer depended on being liked. Your joy didn't hinge on being invited. Your identity stopped being tied to how small you could make yourself to be digestible. Instead, you remembered who you were and whose you were. That realization lit a fire so bright that it burned through every illusion they tried to trap you with. You started speaking truth, moving different, and glowing in ways you couldn't dim even if you tried. And now? Now your presence alone makes some people uncomfortable. Not because you're arrogant, but because you remind them of the healing they've been avoiding. You walk into rooms with such clarity, it reflects their confusion. You speak with such conviction, it exposes their compromise. You didn't come to flex, you came to free, But freedom offends those who are still in chains. That's why you were always the one left out or talked about. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God was preserving your spirit for something bigger. While others chased popularity, you cultivated purpose. While they craved platforms, you were being prepared in private. You weren't overlooked, you were overprotected, hidden in plain sight while heaven downloaded the assignment. And here's the kicker. The very traits they mocked are now your ministry. The intuition, the sensitivity, the way you feel everything deeply, those are your weapons. Your ability to stand in truth no matter who walks away, that's power. Your boldness to dream despite doubt, that's divine. You're not the outcast, spirit warrior, you're the blueprint, the original, the prototype, the one sent ahead to show others it can be done with God, with integrity and with fire in your bones. So the next time someone doesn't get you, just smile. You weren't created to be understood by everyone. You were created to lead them. And sometimes leadership looks like walking alone for a while, until the ones you were meant to guide finally recognize the light they've been searching for was always radiating from you. Point 6, your silence was louder than their noise. When they talked about you, you stayed silent, not out of fear, but from a place of deep spiritual power. When they whispered lies behind your back, when they subtweeted, gossiped, and plotted, you didn't clap back. You didn't drop receipts. You didn't create drama for validation or go toe-to-toe to prove your worth. Instead, you took the higher road, the road few travel, but the one most respected. You dropped to your knees and whispered prayers instead of curses. And while they thought they were winning because you weren't fighting back in the flesh, what they didn't realize is that you had already declared victory in the spirit. That silence they mistook for surrender was actually a setup for your spiritual rise. Spirit warrior, silence is one of the most misunderstood weapons in the arsenal of the awakened. But you mastered it. It takes divine discipline to keep still when every part of your ego wants to react. It takes spiritual maturity to pray for people who wish you harm. And most of all, it takes clarity to understand that not everything requires your energy, because not everything is sent to grow you. Some things are sent to drain you, but you protected your peace like a temple. You refused to turn your life into a circus just because clowns were performing. Let's get factual for a second. In psychology, the gray rock method is a tactic used to disengage with narcissists and toxic individuals by becoming emotionally non-reactive. Why? Because these types feed off chaos. They thrive when you get loud, emotional, or reactive. But you didn't give them that satisfaction. You moved with the precision of someone who knows that real power isn't always loud. It's quiet, focused, and strategic. You weren't trying to win the internet. You were trying to win your spiritual alignment, and that's exactly what you did. While others were exhausting themselves trying to go viral, you went vertical, straight up into God's presence. You fasted when others feasted on gossip. You stayed hidden in your purpose while they chased temporary applause, and because of that, you became undeniable, unshakable, unreachable by the tactics that once worked on you. The shade they threw didn't dim your light. It just revealed how brightly you were already shining. The enemy doesn't know what to do with someone who won't play their game. The moment you stopped reacting and started rising, you became a threat. They tried to bait you, tried to provoke you, but every time you responded with grace, with peace, and with power. That's why you're still standing. That's why favor is following you. Because heaven rewards those who let God handle what flesh can't fix. See, you understood something vital. You can't control what people say about you, but you can control whether you let it shape you. You didn't absorb their poison. You transmuted it into purpose. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. And that kind of wisdom, it's rare, it's holy, it's disruptive in the best way, because the truth is, not every battle is yours to fight. Some are God's, and when you hand them over, He shows up like only He can. And now, the very people who tried to tear you down are watching you walk in everything they said you'd never have. Not because you shouted, not because you clapped back, but because you stayed aligned, because you trusted that elevation comes through surrender, not struggle, that obedience is louder than revenge, that peace is more powerful than performance. So keep mastering the silence, spirit warrior, because every time you choose stillness over strife, grace over gossip, and purpose over petty, you're not losing, You're leading, quietly, boldly, powerfully. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Point 7. You were obedient in the dark. That's why you're blessed in the light. Chosen one, let's be clear. Your glow-up wasn't about aesthetics, applause, or luck. It was the result of radical obedience. While people marvel at your transformation now, what they didn't witness was the wilderness season, the one that broke you, shaped you, and ultimately built you. They didn't see the moments you laid flat on the floor, sobbing into the carpet, asking God why He chose you for this path. They weren't around during your private battles, the mental warfare, the spiritual pruning, the relentless cycle of dying to self daily just to rise again stronger. You fasted when others feasted, you prayed when others parted. You chose character over clout and obedience over opportunity. Science confirms that consistency rewires the brain. That's what you were doing, disciplining your flesh while retraining your spirit. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to adapt and change, and guess what? You used it, renewed your mind, just like Romans 12:2 said. You didn't just hope for a glow-up, you labored for it in the trenches of faith and obedience. And now, heaven is putting your harvest on display, because what you planted in secret, sacrifice, purity, devotion, is now growing in full view. That's divine law. What you sow, you reap. Galatians 6:7 makes it plain. God is not mocked. He doesn't forget. And now you're the living proof that faithfulness has a fragrance the world can't ignore. The ones who dismissed you before are quiet now, because prophecy doesn't come with an apology, it comes with fulfillment. You weren't performing, you were aligning. That's why you're glowing. Not because of filters or followers, but because you've been refined by fire and anointed through pressure. Your glow is the evidence of endurance. Your breakthrough is the result of breaking over and over until your spirit aligned with the promise. Don't be surprised when people stare. They're not just admiring your fashion or presence. They're witnessing something deeper, something divine. Your transformation wasn't just about changing habits or elevating your lifestyle. It was a calling walked out with faith, discipline, and fire. You didn't rise by accident. You rose because you were too. What others call a glow-up, heaven calls when God places His hand on someone. It shows not just in how they look, but in how they pain, how they threw fire, and how they, when everything around them tells them to fall. The spotlight you now find yourself under isn't about fame or recognition. It's a heavenly reflection. It's confirmation of what was already written in eternity. You were chosen. You were. And now the evidence is undeniable. The spirit warrior in you was always there. They just never saw it coming, but you did. Long before the applause, you felt the tug in your spirit. You couldn't settle. You couldn't conform. You were different, and you knew it. This wasn't ego. It was you weren't built for average, and heaven didn't send you here to blend in. Jeremiah 1:5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." That wasn't poetry. It was prophecy. And now, the world is slowly waking up to what God already confirmed about you. Let this be your reminder. You didn't get here by luck. You arrived by through the prayers of your ancestors, the resilience of your spirit, and the favor of a God who doesn't break promises. The Bible declares in Isaiah 54:17, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." That's not just scripture, it's your survival story. Lies were told, weapons were formed, betrayals came, but you're still here, still chosen, still rising. So keep shining, not to show off, but to show keep rising, not for attention, but for, and keep walking in boldness, because you were built to break patterns, not follow them. The same people who once mocked your dreams are now speechless at your elevation. They laughed. Now they look lost. They underestimated what a chosen one could become when they stop shrinking and start stepping into their divine identity. You pulled it off. Not just for you, but for every soul watching, and they will never forget it. Stay awake. The journey of the chosen is only beginning.